Hello and welcome to the PTA Global Co-founder and Contributor interview series. My name is Dan Duran. It's an honor to be here representing PTA Global. And today we have the fabulous Annette Lang. Annette, thank you for being here with us today.
Dan, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. What a wonderful idea and project that you guys have done. It's really fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it. I've got to absolutely give just a ton of credit to Israel Allen, our Director of Education, who's been he's kind of like that hamster in the wheel that's spinning all the time behind the scenes, putting a ton of work into making all this possible. So huge kudos to him. Huge kudos to all the contributors and co-founders who've made time to be a part of this. Now, for the listeners out there, I want to just run through a couple of things so y'all know what we're doing here. You're all muted by default, so you're not able to speak, and that's just to cut back on all the background noise to make sure that we're able to record this and continue to put it out there and make it available on our website. However, there is a box, and if you're watching right now, you'll see me looking off because I have another screen on my left, but there's a box there that says questions. Questions is where you'll communicate with us. Okay, so feel free to type questions, kind of like a chat box as well, and I'll be able to see them. So just for fun, if anybody's listening and able to do that, pop one in there and I'll make sure this is working. The other thing is we're going to run 30-40 minutes somewhere in there. We'll have Q&A, but I'll be scanning those questions, and if it seems like a good time and a good relevant one, we'll pop it in during the actual interview. Another really important thing is you're going to see a button on your control panel that says handouts. We have 4 handouts in there. Please make sure you download those. If you're doing this with a phone, sometimes it pops open a different screen, but you're not going to lose the webinar. But you'll want to download those because there's special offers in there for all of you that have chosen to tune in, and I thank you for that. Last thing I want to mention is there's no exam for the webinar. So we do get that question. So it's again an interview, so there will be no exam or CECs. That being said, obviously PTA Global Education and Annettes Education does come with continuing education credits and sometimes an exam. So with that, now that I got the boring housekeeping stuff out of the way, I want to open this up. And again, thank you, Annette, for being here. And if you would take a little bit of time here and tell our listeners a bit about your career journey.
Okay, awesome. Well, officially my career in fitness started in 1983, but I need to back up from there because in thinking of what I wanted to talk about today, I was thinking there's 2 threads or 2 themes that have been part of my personal and professional life that have affected me and impacted me and brought me to where I am. And the first one is I always knew as a little kid when I was active or doing things or exercising, I always felt better. It contributed to my body image, my self-esteem, my positive self-attitude. And then as I got older, if I wasn't feeling happy about something, I would go for a run and think it through. And I was like, okay, so how do I turn this into a job? Like how do I help other people appreciate this? And the other theme or thread was I was always intrigued, like Dan, what makes you tick? Like what makes you you? And why do I see this differently than you do? And how do I then communicate to you, like to better understand where you're coming from? So that being said, I figured, okay, well, I'm never going to get a job doing anything like this that I want. So I'll do my second passion, which was German. My parents were German Hungarians. They came here from Germany. And so all of our family was over there. So I was like, why don't I teach German, So I went to the University of Florida in Gainesville, and I got my undergraduate degree in German. And I did get a minor in recreation because I figured if all else fails, I'll go do programming at the park or something, because I figured like I didn't feel I couldn't be a doctor. I didn't want to be a physical therapist. I didn't want to be a coach, so I just, as far as like traditional sports and athletes. So I said, okay, I'm gonna teach German. So at the end of that undergraduate degree, they said, hey, guess what? The person who was up for the scholarship to go to Germany for a year declined. So you're next on the list. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I got to go to Germany for a year. And the idea was that I was supposed to start thinking, what are you going to do your master's thesis in? So I was in Germany, and it was so interesting because of the universal health care. They had public service announcements on TV. Do you know how to take your pulse? Do you know what good blood pressure is? Do you know how to take care of yourself, right? Prevention. And I was like, damn it, that's what I want to do. I want to somehow help the average person appreciate movement, activity, exercise, right? So I go back to Gainesville, I go back to the University of Florida, and I say, thanks a lot. I'm not going to continue with the master's program. I knew of this health club in town that had gotten bigger through the years. You know, I just worked out at the gym at the college, so I never went to a health club. And it was Gainesville Health and Fitness Center, Joe Cerulli. And I walked in there in 1983, and I said, I think I want to work here. I have no idea what you do here. So do you guys remember Nautilus workouts? This was a Nautilus gym. We went down to Arthur Jones's compound, who invented Nautilus machines. The idea being that the chain wraps around a cam. The cam is shaped like a Nautilus shell, so it's not a complete circle. So you're doing the super pullover machine, and when you're in your weakest part of the strength curve, the weight feels lighter, right? And so their whole goal was to make people realize that you could get big using machines. And it was an amazing time to be there. Ken Hutchins was around there. He developed the original super slow training program. I think it was like 10-second positive and 10-second negative. And so my job was to kick your butt. 8 to 12 repetitions, 1 set to failure, momentary muscular failure. That was my job as an instructor. And so they said, you're really good with people, you should go into sales. And I love this because so many trainers say this in the workshops now. I hate my managers always talking about sales. I just want to help people. I don't want to sell. You know, so like you just change that in your head, right? Like we would get a script, overcoming objections, you know. So I was like, I can't say these words, but you learn how to say it in your words, right? It was really great sales training. We had every tape of every motivational speaker, Dale Carnegie sales training. It was awesome. So I remember the day I had the opportunity to sometimes talk to 10 people a day about their goals and their dreams, you know, and like people would spill their guts to me. This is why I always fail at exercise programs. And, you know, and I learned how to listen and talk. And so why do you think you failed? What do you think is different now? What do you think like is making you motivated to do this now, right? Like meeting them where they're at, right? And so I remember the day I was sitting there talking to a lady, had this great conversation, and she said, you know what? You're right. Thanks for talking me into it, which of course I didn't. I helped her talk herself into it. She said, I think I'm motivated and ready to commit to a walking program outside my house. There's a park right there. And I was like, awesome. I'm so happy for you. Please let me know if I can help you in the future. And I said, you know, I got to get out of this sales business because I don't really care if you buy a membership here today. I just want to help you whatever you're at, you know? So I went back to the college and I said, I guess I got to get a master's degree in exercise science. And they said, well, wait a minute, not so fast. Tell me about yourself. What do you like about where you were working and what you were doing? And I, you know, kept talking about the interpersonal stuff, the relationship with these people. And they said, you might want to think about health education. And I was like, health education, what's that? And they said, well, you learn more about the behavior part, you know, the motivation to change a behavior, psychology of behavior change, theories of health behavior change, communication skills, listening skills. And I was like, that sounds like it, you know? And I still took the exercise science coursework a little bit too. But so like it was the same thing, Dan. It was so interesting. Like, you know, we would sit in small groups and like you would talk to me about a behavior you wanted to change. And I would say, oh, Dan, let me understand if I hear you and understand you correctly, right? I think what you're saying is mirroring, right? And it was the same kind of thing. I had to learn how to put it into my own words. You know, affirmation, locus of control, internal versus external, self-efficacy. How confident are you that you will be successful at this big behavior or tiny little behavior? So I loved the coursework. So I thought maybe I would work, I don't know, in a corporate fitness center or something, you know. But in the back of my mind was another nagging thought. Got to get back to New York. Got to get back to New York. My whole family's in New York. Maybe I'll have a better chance at more career options. So I came back to New York, and my two first jobs, I love these stories. I worked for a management company in a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, and I was in charge of a swimming pool, managing, and a tiny little workout room. And so my job was to sell memberships to people in the community so that they could get more revenue besides just the hotel guests. So after about 9 months, I got a job at Crunch. I worked at Crunch Fitness when it was one location. It was a dance studio in a residential building in Greenwich Village, New York City. So this was crazy because the aerobics instructors would play their music so loud, right, at 9 o'clock at night. So the people living in the building would call the owner and yell at him. He'd yell at me. I'd yell at the teachers, but nothing would ever change. You know? So that was a crazy experience. So in this space was a little workout room that somebody rented, and there was a lady who kept working out there, and we got to be friendly. And she said, you know, Annette, her name was Courtney. She said, I'm a personal trainer at Equinox, and we're very busy, and we're doing well. And the owners are talking about opening up more locations. This was in 1993, 94. So I said, who's going to pay me to give them a workout? That's just ridiculous, you know? I heard about that in Gainesville at the fitness center. Some friends of mine were telling me, you know, I have friends in Washington, D.C., and they go to the gym a lot, and they're getting paid to help people. I was like, this is just crazy. And I thought, wait a minute. What have I always wanted to do? I want to help people with their fitness and workout, so let's try. So I walk into Equinox, one location, family-owned business, the Errico family, and Bob Asquari was there as the fitness director. And I truly credit Bob with setting up personal training businesses and health clubs the way that we know it today. He set up a tier system with education, and that got you promoted to the next level, and we got it tight. So I was the first program director for Equinox Fitness Training Institute. And then they started opening one location after another. And so I would do my 25, 30 sessions a week, personal training, and then I would help the new trainers get ready. We had our own internal education programs. We had our own internal certifications for the trainers. And it was an awesome time. The 90s we were just rocking it with the personal training. And it was a great experience to work at that club because that's when I started applying to speak at conferences. I was like, well, what do I know, Bob? What am I going to speak about? And he goes, well, you have a master's degree in health education. Why don't you talk about that for starters, you know? And so I started speaking at, you know, the business conferences like the URSA and the club industry, but then also, I mean, I can't say every single fitness conference, but most of them consistently for probably 15 years or more. And that's when the phone calls started coming in. You know, hey, you spoke at URSA 3 months ago. I own a little health club outside of Detroit, Michigan. You know, will you come and speak to my trainers about, I had like a whole menu, you know, sales, core training, communication skills, health behavior change, training pregnant and postpartum women, stretching, you know, so a whole plethora of choices of workshops. And then it was at Equinox that I met Gray Cook. Bob Asquari had a friend. Her name is Stephanie Montgomery, and she was in charge of Reebok University. I was like, what the heck is Reebok University? And Bob said, well, the shoe company. They pay for a group of people that have been traveling around the world already for the last decade, you know, because aerobics was much bigger around the world already. And so this team of people, I mean, Jim Miller invented the step. Jeffrey Scott, Lisa Wheeler, Fred Hoffman, these wonderful group of people who have been traveling around teaching aerobics classes to teachers. So then we started the Reebok University Master Trainer Team for personal training. And so we made workshops that were Reebok branded. So then that even added to my travel availability or options because I could teach my workshop, but then piggyback it with a Reebok University workshop. And that's when one day Stephanie says, hey, you guys, we heard about this physical therapist. His name is Gray Cook, and he's in Danville, Virginia, and he's doing these things. They're called movement screens. And so we want you to meet with him to see if we can get something together for personal trainers. So we go down and meet Gray Cook, who's just so awesome. And the program was called Reebok University Reactive Neuromuscular Training Program. And so it was movement screens and corrective exercises. And then Gray tweaked it into the Reebok 5-point mobility screen. It was like a self screen. But then several years later, Reebok cut the funding for that line of their budget. And so there was no more Reebok University. And then another day at Equinox, Bob walks in and says, hey, I went to that conference last week and I met this guy. I think he's from Australia, and he started a website for personal trainers. And I told him that you would write articles for him, but he can't pay you. I'm like, okay, thanks a lot, Bob. Another non-paying gig. Well, it was freaking Richard Boyd, And I know a lot of people probably have the same story. Richard came into Equinox in the morning one day, and I met him, and I spent the whole day with him, spent the entire day with him, just talking and hanging out. And so I got to work with them with their original, technology efforts and workshops, and got to meet the whole group. Oh my gosh, Bobby Capuccio and Ian and Rodney and Scott, and they were just such awesome people. And worked with them at different conferences. And I have to tell you this one funny story. I hope Richard hears this one day. Richard said, hey, listen, we'd like you to go to Australia and teach the movement screen workshop at 2 different locations, 2 different cities. And then Ian will teach another workshop also. We can pay you a little bit. We'll pay for your airfare. We'll pay for your hotel, but would you mind sharing a room with us? I'm like, okay, no, whatever. So I got my own bed at least. So Richard and Ian are sleeping in the same bed. I was just crazy. Met Ian's like 10 brothers or whatever he has, but it was just wonderful opportunities. So those were really good times. And so, I would say I noticed a difference 2012, 13, where health clubs were beginning to do more internal education. So they started training their own trainers. So there was less requests for me to travel to them to teach. And so I started focusing more on the 2 programs that still got a lot of requests. And that was training the pregnant and postpartum client and integrated stretching. And I just want to say one more thing regarding Equinox. We started this whole effort at incorporating stretching into our workouts. And it was amazing how profitable that was and how much the clients loved it. And so Bob Esqueri would go all around the country and help other health clubs develop their personal training businesses. And then I would go in and teach workshops. I would go in and teach pre-postnatal and stretching. So when I go to other health clubs and I teach my workshops, I tell the trainers, if I had $1 for every portable massage table that is now used as a stretching table in health clubs, I could probably take another day off or 2 once in a while. But anyway, so I quit Equinox because I started teaching at other health clubs and the owners didn't appreciate that, and I totally understood. And so then I had to develop my own private private training business, because that's through word of mouth, so that started getting bigger. And if I had talked to you this January, I would say, well, this is going to be a great year. I already have 11 workshops booked that'll take me through the end of July. And I averaged 15, 16 private personal training sessions a week. So I'm in New York City, so a lot of the apartment buildings have gyms in the basement. Some of them are pretty crappy. So I do that, and then I also do outside workouts. And then COVID hit, so everything changed, as with everybody else. But so here I am. I really appreciate. I love being a trainer, so that I can help people. But now, being a teacher, I can help trainers help people. So the sphere of affecting change gets bigger. So I really love doing both.
Oh, what a story. What you said at the end there, I absolutely resonate with. That depending on what your passion is, the ability to train the trainer
Right.
or train even training a fitness a personal trainer, a fitness coach, who's then helping hundreds of people. It just becomes exponential, and it's so dang rewarding. But the names you just
I,
mentioned are absolute legends. And I got to meet Bob Esquire years ago when I first came into the private fitness, and what a man. He and his wife, just amazing people. Just really, just a freaking legend in our industry. And indeed, Richard Boyd started all of this. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Richard. So, yeah, for the listeners out there, remember to type your questions. I am seeing comments, and Eves, thank you so much. Eves, I don't give last names when I do this, but Eves has had a lot of real positive comments. He's tuning in from Bermuda. He loves your story. And somebody named Patricia said, Guten Tag. But I don't know what that means. It's a German, right?
yeah, good day. Hello.
Ah, okay. Well, good day back at you. Guten Tag back at you. I'm sure I said that wrong, Patricia. But again, type your questions. Amazing journey. So great to have you here. Now, you put some dates out there, so I don't have to do the guess here, but it looks to me like at least 20 years of experience, and I'm gonna say
Going
we're
on,
coming up on 30. Yeah.
I think we're going on 35, but who's counting?
Holy moly. So looking back and that, think back 20, 25 years ago, I mean, truly personal training, you just told the story, was starting. I mean, fitness was just taking off. And the coaches or personal trainers that were successful back then, again 25, 30 years ago, what were those traits or characteristics or body of education? What were the things that made them successful in growing their business, their clientele, impacting more lives at that time that remain true today in 2020?
Yeah. Well, I think PTA Global says it all. You know, like I remember back in the day, I feel like we were taught to be the expert, right? Like we're the ones who have the answers for you. And it's amazing to me how even not too long ago it happens in my workshops, where the potential client can't even finish a sentence before the trainer jumps in and says, "Oh, I got you. This is what you got to do. This is what you're going to do." And there was a time we used to joke about it at Equinox where we thought that the clinical person with the degree in exercise science and the clipboard was the most qualified, but sometimes that person couldn't talk to people. So it'll never, I don't think it'll ever stop being those interpersonal skills, being able to relate to another freaking human being. I tell trainers all the time, who cares how good you are? If I don't get along with you, I'm never going to know how good of a trainer you are.
Absolutely brilliant. And you're right. It's exactly what we teach because of our contributors like yourself, who made that very clear that it is about the connection. It is about the relationship. I forget who the famous person was. I'm sure Israel's going to give me a hard time about this because he's really good at quotes. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right?
Yeah.
So it's really that philosophy. Now, let's look at 2020. Here we are. What a year that's been, up to and including the COVID curveball. Do you feel that is going to be, or what do you feel is going to be the skill set, the trait, the characteristic that's going to help that newer person in the fitness industry build their business the next 10 years? What should they be, focused on, or what do you believe is most important for their success?
Yeah. Well, again, the interpersonal stuff is huge because as we're finding out, being virtual with somebody, I think the workouts that I do virtually with my clients are harder than in person because I can't see them quite clearly, and there's not that touch. And I think even before COVID hit, it's the classic line, right? We're more isolated, even though technology keeps us in touch with everybody a lot easier. And I say this in my workshops, in the stretching workshop especially. We can argue about the benefits of stretching or whatever, but you give somebody a great workout and you get them on the stretch table and you're touching them appropriately and you have that eye to eye contact And I tell trainers, think about this. That person leaves that gym, that workout with you, and they feel awesome. And how many times during the day will your client think of you in a positive way? So that's what we need to strive for, right? Like, I want to be a part of your brain, like when somebody's talking about eating too much and feeling fat, somebody's talking about energy level, your client thinks, yeah, I had a great workout with Annette today, that was awesome. So that's going to be even more important the less we are able to work with people. And another important thing is, if you can have multiple sources of revenue. I always loved being a teacher and a trainer, but I got to tell you, sometimes it really shows me how valuable that is when, training goes down in the summertime, I can still do the workshops, or times like this when health clubs are closed, I still have my training. So if that's an option for you to develop another revenue stream.
Brilliant, brilliant. And you know what you were talking about with the touch and them thinking about you and being a part of their day, the way I describe it, and I have to be careful with this because I was corrected once. I want to be their fix. I want to be their addiction. I
Yeah,
want to be that thing that when they leave the session, they feel better than when they arrived, and they can't wait to come back again. So
yeah,
whatever that fix is, that thing that makes them happy, that they can't wait to get back to, I want it to be me if I'm the coach. So love
absolutely.
that. Love that.
Mhm.
So now I want to jump in now into truly the topic here. In our certification, you teach training the pregnant and postnatal client. But what you're really, really passionate about and have what's clearly, created your career is create an experience, not just a session. And those of you that are familiar with PTA Global, who've been through our education, know that we say that over and over. We have banners that say it. And again, it's because of folks like Annette that helped us exist. So that being said, how did you think of this experience design approach? How did that become something you wanted to do more of?
Okay. Well, when I studied health education, the definition that I learned about what health education is any combination of learning experiences designed to facilitate the voluntary adoption of behaviors conducive to health. So that's a lot, but any combination of learning experiences. So, I like to tell my clients, I got tips up the wazoo. We just got to figure out which one works for you. You want to lose 10 pounds? I got a million ways you can lose 10 pounds, but which way is going to be the best fit for you right now? So combination of learning experiences. I remember a trainer at Equinox back in the day. She goes, well, if you want to work with me, you have to do a food diary. I was like, oh, how's that working out for you? Most people don't like doing food diaries, so it's got to be what you're ready and willing to do, right? Learning experiences designed to facilitate, right? Encourage, help, not force down your throat. Like, I've never been a fitness zealot, I'm not pushy like that. So designed to facilitate the voluntary adoption of behaviors conducive to health. If you're not ready to try, it doesn't matter, So that's when I started thinking and I started talking and teaching that I feel like we're health behavior change specialists or health behavior change trainers. And I think Paul Taylor alluded to this when you were speaking to him last week or whenever that was. And so it's always been part of me. And then in 2002, I met my now husband, Scott. And we're sitting there talking, and I wanted to incorporate myself as a business. I wanted to become an LLC. And so I was thinking of, official name, logo, slogan, tagline, everything, right? And so I said, so what do you think I should do for a tagline? And he goes, whoa, 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 step back a little bit. I don't know. Tell me who you are, right? What do your clients think of when they hear about Annette Lang? What do the trainers in your workshops think of? Who are you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the experience? you know? So I'll never forget this. I said, well, I really love, like, you know, the saying, like, the move more, let's move more, you know? And he goes, okay, so what do you think that would look like? And I wrote this in all capital letters, let's move more, in 3 exclamation points. And he goes, how does that make you feel? I said, I feel like I'm yelling at people. And he goes, yeah, so is that you? I said, no, I'm not that pushy. You know, so I finally got it down to all lower caps, let's move more, ... Like, maybe today, let's move more. When you're ready, you know? So anyway, so this concept of design thinking can affect you, for those people listening, if you're starting a new career, if you're trying to rebrand yourself because of this pandemic, right? If I look at your business card, what does it make me think? Is that who you are, right? And so, and my husband, of course, is a design teacher. So he goes, oh yeah, I teach a course and experiences that. I'm like, oh, okay, this is awesome. So anyway, so that's when I started talking about it more specifically. I talked about it at Meeting of the Minds a couple of times too. You know, keeping the end user in mind during the whole process. So can you imagine making a new smartphone, and at the very end, when you're totally done with it, ready to package it, you say, okay, how are we going to market this to seniors? Well, you needed to think about that a long time ago. You know, which kind of buttons they like, how many apps they want, what does it feel like? Is it easy to hold? You can't just do that as an afterthought. So in design terminology, the way I understand it, they talk about persona development, scenario development, and then they even storyboard it, put, you know, Post-it notes on the wall to figure out the best way to go forward. You know, so who is my client? Who is this person? When they wake up this morning, what do they feel like? Did they sleep well? What's their energy level? Are they crabby? Did they eat breakfast? You know, so that when I meet them in the gym, I've already got this whole scenario in my head, keeping them in mind. So
I want to keep going with this because I love this, and let's take it now to an example
yeah,
of creating an experience, or or whether it's with a client or a workshop. So how about an actual example of how you might use that? Maybe make something up or think back to me something you've done in the past.
yeah, no, absolutely. So like I think about my client, Jerry. He's 89 years old now. I've been working with him for 25 years, you know, first at Equinox and then in his apartment building gym. And if I step back and think of him as far as this end user, you know, he crabby. He's sometimes in chronic pain, takes a lot of medications. You know, now he walks with a walker. He's got, you know, poor posture, constantly needs help with proper breathing, right? His hearing aids don't work appropriately sometimes. You know, so we're in the gym, in the basement, and this one trainer and client walk in who always talk a lot and too loud. And so I say, oh, hey, Jerry, the next exercise we're going to do is in the other room. We get into the other room and he goes, oh, thank God you took me out of that other room. I hate those guys. Well, he doesn't know that I deliberately did that, right? It's like a seamless intent, right? And so when he talks to me about something very emotional, you know, with like medical issues with his family members, I'll never forget one time it looked like he was going to get teary-eyed. And I said, hang on, Jerry, keep going. And I just knelt down to pretend that I was retying my sneakers. So he's up here, I'm kneeling down, looking up at him, listening to him. You know, just reduces the stress level. You know, so it's a deliberate intent. Which exercise am I picking? Which one? He seems uncomfortable with this right now. You know, instead of pushing it on him, why don't I pick a different exercise? You know, I think the analogy of a restaurant helps too. Like, you know, when you go to a restaurant where you really love it, and like you say, you want to go back again, but you're not really sure why. It's just like everything was perfect. Like you didn't feel interrupted when they refilled your water bottle. You didn't feel interrupted when they brought your plate, right? But that's a deliberate intent. on those people. They spend a lot of time thinking about that kind of stuff. So with a trainer, can you think about that? Not just, okay, I'm ready to go, let's go. This is exercise number one, but everything else about you that I need to plan.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and because first of all, I completely relate or understand. I know I could definitely do things better, but I think back to coaching and training. And let me ask you this: does it add work? Do you have to put more work and time and thinking into delivering this experience?
Absolutely.
Indeed,
Absolutely.
and that's what I wanted our listeners to hear, because
Absolutely.
you get out of it what you put into it. They get out of it what you put into it. And you don't just show up and start doing exercises. We have to be thinking well in advance. And it starts with an appropriate interview, right? An appropriate opportunity to get to know somebody's likes, dislikes, their past, what they perceive as failures in the past, what they perceived as a bad experience, whether it's with a trainer, a club, a self-workout. What are those things they didn't like? What are the things they're looking for? In the words of Scott Hobson, give them what they ask for and sneak in what they need.
Right.
And I absolutely love that. But it is work. It is
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
go ahead, Annette.
No, I was just gonna say, I just love it when I remember one client said, how do you always know exactly how many reps I need, or exactly, I'm like, well, that's my job, but I'm thinking constantly like, oh, I think I need to get her to stop here, or, do a few more, or, and I remember another client, um, she said, you don't even realize how much you help me in my everyday life. And in my head, I'm going, well, of course I do, But I said, tell me what you mean, Melissa. And she said, she's like a literary agent. And she said, just your subtle cues, like, come on, you got this, you can do this, you can do a few more reps. She goes, that I hear that in my brain when I'm at work and I feel challenged. And I tell myself, you got this, you can do this. So I just feel like it's so profound how much of an impact we have on people's lives. Like I when I used to consult more with companies, I would tell health club managers and owners, you want to know how to help your trainers, give them support. Do you know how hard it is to potentially work one-on-one with 10 different people each day? It's a really hard job.
It is a ton of work. And we've all seen, I was certainly guilty of this early on before I met Rodney Korn and learned from him and Bobby and all the others and yourself. It's so easy, less work, to say, okay, you want to lose weight. So here's a exercise routine, uh, taking into consideration maybe any injuries or health issues. So I always want to be safe. Here's the routine. Now I hold my clipboard and I read off the exercises. It's so robotic. It's so impersonal. But I've got to say, I've seen it. I've seen it a lot. And with that being said, and what you're explaining, which is dramatically different and much more work, how does this affect the client experience? How does this work that we put in, how's it going to help the listeners out there, the coach, how's it going to help them build their business?
Well, because I think you're going to have that connection, right? Empathy, meeting the person where they're at. And I think it's going to make you more successful, quite frankly. I mean, that's the only thing that I could think of is why I've kept clients for so many years. Like, I've been working with a client. She said she could never work with anybody more than a few sessions because they just pissed her off all the time. And I've been with her for 15 years. So people tell me, oh, it's because you're real. It's because, what you see is what you get. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a lot of work. Like I'm constantly thinking, am I using the wrong words? Am I saying the right things? Am I talking too loud? Am I, responding in a negative way or a positive way, so that they don't even realize why they feel so good, But it's like you said, it's the fix, right? They leave and they feel awesome and they want to come back.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I had one person say that they couldn't hear the audio. I suspect it was something on their end. If anybody wants to shoot me a question here and say, yes, I can still hear you. I assume you can because the comments are still coming in. I kind of want to tie this up, Annette, by if you were to say, okay, here's three things, keeping it as simple as possible for those people that haven't maybe gone through education and additional learning, uh, that, speaking to what you're speaking to, just today, this is all they know, this is all they've learned. Three things like step one, step two, step three to create a client experience. What would that be?
Okay. Number one, step back and think about the person with whom you're going to meet. And again, persona development, scenario development. Who is this person? What do they feel? And then see if you can plan ahead of how you can react spontaneously if they show these different things, like, oh, they might be tired, they might be in pain, right? And so you plan. Then body language. I mean, these are classic, examples. Standing with your arms crossed, pointing your finger, speaking in a tone. Well, yeah, we have to adapt to their personality type. We have to adapt to their communication style. So think about the person with whom you're going to meet, and then try to adapt the way you communicate to the way that they like to be communicated to. And that's not manipulating anything. That's good communication skills. Some people want the boot camp trainer. Some people want to be spoken to softly, right? And then you guys talk about this. What style of of exerciser are you, right? And so think about that. Like if I'm pushing you to do this and it's obviously a struggle, then let me change it to where something will be more palatable to you.
Brilliant. And for those of you again who have been through our education or you're going to, some of the things Annette's talking about is personality types, or what we call social styles. So driver and expressive, amiable, analytic, making sure that they're not adapting to me. I'm a driver. I speak fast. I tend to not have a lot of emotion in my words. I make direct eye contact. I tend to stand tall. I have to adapt that to the person that's in front of me. If they're more amiable, I need to be doing the hugs. I need to be asking about their day and their children and their life. I need to do the high fives and be much more emotional. If I'm training,
And Dan,
yeah,
in sales, we used to talk about that too. It's like, so if you walked into the fitness center and I was going to sell you a membership, I wouldn't tell you, oh, you're going to love this. This is a party atmosphere. There's so much socialization. I'd be like, these are the facts. This is what you get,
exactly. And so it's, learning what you can while you can, as quick as you can, and adapting everything to their style. You said it. And movement style, something else we talk about. Maybe the client likes traditional movement,
Mhm.
barbells, dumbbells, machines, put a pin in it, let's go. Others want to get weird. They want to stand on a Bosu. They want to try a Viper. They want to use a rip trainer. It can't be what I like. It has to be what they like.
Well, you called it weird.
Yeah, that's right. And I like weird, but the folks that don't like weird think it's weird, And in the words of my mentor, how freaky, do you want to get? You want to get freaky? Let's put some stuff together. But for the person that absolutely turns off, but I like it, I'm gonna lose them. I'm going to lose them. And it's like, what did I do wrong? I gave them my best. I showed them my best combination of standing on a Bosu and holding a pipe plate with one finger, spinning a basketball in the other, and squatting. I mean, come on, everybody loves that.
Right.
And I'm stealing that from Anthony Carey, by the way. He has a picture of something like that. So, making sure we meet them where they need to be met, provide an experience, not just a session. So, Annette, with that, I want to, there's a couple of questions in here. And if anybody has any, I want to make sure that you put them in, just a reminder, because we're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon. Now, here's a question actually from Ryan that ties right into what you teach for PTA Global, and that is about training the pregnant client, which definitely is one of many of your areas of expertise. And Ryan says, my wife is about 24 weeks pregnant now. Can I have your expertise on this question? What exercises are best for pregnant women? Now, I know that's kind of an overarching question, but I'm sure you've had it before. So what would your response be to Ryan?
I think the number one most important thing to teach pregnant women is how to access their deep core abdominal muscles, breathing properly and accessing their deep core abdominal muscles, because then you can push a kid out easier, and it will minimize the diastasis recti that is probably going to happen to some degree. So that's huge. And I think it's absolutely vital to address pelvic floor integrity. So I can give you 5 ways to do pelvic floor integrity, the basic Kegel, the elevator exercise, but we need to address pelvic floor integrity, not only with pregnant clients, but with everybody.
And that's clearly something you're still teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and lead right in right now and ask you, for the listeners out there who would like to learn more about creating an experience or learn more about training the pregnant and postpartum client, how do people find you, Annette? How do they find you in this world of technology? What's the best way for them to say, you know what, I want to learn more from you, Annette?
Well, my website is my name, AnnetteLang.com. You can email me. It would be Annette@AnnetteLang.com. And for the rest of the year, I'm setting up one virtual workshop that leads to the specialty certification each month. So it's September, October, November, December. And I'd like to offer PTA Global folks the reduced price of $149. And then we'll be able to work together more.
Most excellent. And for the listeners out there that are listening now, you're going to get a follow-up email that'll have that information, as well as how to get in touch with Annette and the special offer. If you downloaded the handouts, you're going to see that as well. Annette put together a brochure so that you know exactly what to ask for and so forth. If you're listening to this later on a podcast, now know how to find her. This email that you're going to get in about an hour is also going to include special offer from PTA Global. So make sure you don't delete it until you take a look at it. And you'll be able to watch this again on the PTA Global website. So if you want to share it with a friend or you want to review some of the information, please do. With that, I kind of want to wrap things up here. And again, everything that you have spoken to is who we are as a brand. And not because you are, in other words, it's not because you're like PTA Global. It's because we are the way we are because of people like you. So I want to thank you for your contribution, you and all the others who have this exact same mindset of training the human being, not just the human body, which is a lot more work, that
Yes.
truly builds relationships, builds success, helps. We're at a place when we look at obesity rates, we look at diabetes rates, we look at even depression because of, let's just face it, we know it's scientifically proven that movement helps with exercise, helps with dealing with depression, even ADHD. We're at a place right now where it continues to just exponentially get worse. And those of you listening, or maybe the people you supervise, or maybe the career you want to get into, we are the soldiers on the front lines of this fight, flat out, period. That's it. We are the preventative maintenance. We are the things that we do before it breaks. So take that seriously. Take pride in what you do, and learn how to connect with those people, because you don't realize how many lives you're actually saving, not just changing, but saving. It's their work, but it's your influence. So I thank you for that. And with that, Annette, I'd like for you to close us out and give some final words of advice, or whatever it may be that's on your heart, to let our listeners know, how you feel and how much you appreciate them.
Yeah, I don't know if I can beat what you just said.
Oh,
No,
I know you can.
I really, really appreciate being here. You just made me think of something that I want to say. Like when I talk about health behavior change, I ask the trainers in the room, the first question is, think of a behavior that you've been successful at changing. You know, maybe you've tried a bunch of times throughout the years and you got it. Now you got it, right? So I finally lost 10 pounds. I finally quit smoking. I finally started flossing my teeth, whatever it is, you know? And now think of another behavior that you're having difficulty with, that you're continually trying to change and it's not working, because that's your client, right? Like that's why, like, it always intrigues me. Why am I have no problem exercising regularly, but hanging up my damn jacket when I come home at the end of the day, I'm not that good at that. So why am I good at some things and not good at other things? So we can learn from that. But I feel like if we look at it, you know, like, well, what about me? You know, like I have those issues too. So number one, it builds empathy. You know, I understand I have those difficulties in other ways, but it helps us relate more to other people and to be able to hopefully communicate to other people. But I feel what you just said is exactly right. I mean, you know, that's why like my new effort that I'm doing now is, you know, just do one thing today, just one thing. You know, like the other day I said, okay, so you're on the toilet and you get up from the toilet. How about sitting down again, getting up again? That's a squat. You just did one more squat. You know, so that's something. Because like you said, you know, we need a lot of help out there.
Thank you, Annette. And to kind of put a little icing on what you just said by repeating what you said, do one thing today.
Yeah.
So everybody out there, do one thing today. That's our ask of you. And we can make the world a better place and save the world through fitness. Thank you so much for your time, Annette. Thank you to all the listeners out there.
Thank you, everybody.
Until next time.
Until next time.